Hello, guys. Apparently, we're watching the Indian Wells final by ourselves, sort of, and yeah, it's gonna be very exciting. I mean, as on the women's side, we've just watched a pretty good one. I think there were some nerves in the opening set tiebreak for sure, 100%. But still, I think we basically watched the match between the two best players of the 2023 season. You can't really say that here because, of course, Djokovic couldn't come to the United States, but we can certainly say that we are watching the best two players since February, let's say, right? I mean, of course, in February, Alcaraz won a title, then lost a final just because he was injured, basically. And Medvedev, yeah, we all know what Daniil Medvedev did. John is showing, or sorry, the unknown producer of the show today. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say who that is showing us some stats on the screen. I will gladly use them and talk about them. Of course, on the ace front, Medvedev is going to be higher, but yeah, Carlos has been serving very well this week, and it's actually part of why I think he is a pretty big favorite for this final. Or pretty big is maybe a stretch, but like I would be surprised if he doesn't take a set. I'm gonna say, and 77% on first serve points won. Yeah, this is why I sort of think that Alcaraz can maybe neutralize that biggest advantage that Medvedev has over him, which is the serve. I think that's fair, right? That this is the biggest advantage that he has. And yeah, with how well Carlos has been serving, he actually has been kind of like besides the tiebreaker with Sinner, he was basically untroubled. Of course, with Sinner there was a set point as well before the tiebreak, but like he's basically been a little untroubled this week, this fortnight, I guess. And maybe that's actually not a good thing, that we can see that he's won 96% of his serve games won. He hasn't really fallen into that much trouble. We'll see if that ends up hurting him or helping him. There's been a question about yeah, how would Novak have fared here. Yeah, not the perfect court for him, definitely not. But of course, he has demonstrated that he can win in every conditions. Um, I'm saying that it's not perfect for him. Of course, he's won it a billion times, but I just mean in recent years, especially, I think Djokovic has sometimes been very vulnerable, especially of the forehand side in slow, in slow conditions. But yeah, I mean, still, he would have been the main favorite to win it if he showed up here. Given the fact that we knew that Medvedev hates these Indian Wells conditions, and Alcaraz was probably the top favorite before the tournament began. So yeah, I think Novak still would have been the main favorite to take it, although it would have been like a two-way race with Carlos for me probably. Right now, of course, all these issues that we've been talking about, like Medvedev just not really liking the bounce, also how slow it is, they don't really matter anymore. I think like they are gonna matter in the sense that they're gonna stop him from playing at his very best level, but his motivation is still going to be like absolutely top notch, right? I mean, it's the final. There's nothing else after that. He is gonna give it his all, and perhaps it's gonna be enough. It's very possible that this is going to be enough. So we'll see. On my screen currently, the players are still warming up. Hopefully, I got myself a pretty good stream, I think, which shouldn't be that far behind, or if it's gonna be behind at all, actually, because I think when I used this stream at some time in the past, even people were saying that they're behind on their TVs. So, and I think the players will be starting very very soon, actually, where I am, so to speak. Who is gonna serve first? I don't even know. I think it's yeah, I think it's gonna be Carlos. Um, oh, and we have this new graphic that tells us who chose, to receive or to serve, and it was actually Medvedev who won the toss and elected to receive. So probably trying to look for that early break, which we know is a pretty valid tactic. I just have to post one more thing on Twitter. Okay, let's go. Alcaraz indeed starts with a serve, and already we have one. The first longer rally of the match. I think we're currently on like the 10th shot. A bit of a hopefully a foreshadowing of what we're gonna see. And Carlos eventually forces the error out of Medvedev. In terms of like rallying, it's probably like it seems like Medvedev should like will be forced to be a little more aggressive than usual. Because yeah, Carlos can just play very like he can play very much like he can attack while still having a lot of margin on his shots, and this is probably going to be like a key um, well, key ability of his today. Medvedev actually tried to step into his forehand a little bit here inside in, but nets it. So Alcaraz has a couple of points already in his opening game. Not that serve isn't making it, but of course, you could see that there's a lot of power in his serve today, and yeah, the whole fortnight really, probably more than there was in Rio, but of course there he was already kind of tired and well, just overplayed after the injury. He double faults actually now for 30-15. Worth mentioning that they've only played once, despite being like, the best players in the world for the past. Well, actually, I guess maybe they never really. Well, their peaks so far have not really coincided, because while Alcaraz was still getting to the tour, or at least getting to the very elite level, Medvedev was having his best moments, and then, of course, when Carlos won the U.S. Open, when Carlos won Madrid, that's when Miami as well, of course. That's when Medvedev actually had a bit of a weaker period. So now that's a little bit over eager, maybe Alcaraz to dictate on that backhand. It's going to be a tough match for him in that regard for sure. Trying to stay aggressive but also patient and yeah, keeping that margin on his shots a little quite high, which yeah, with his technique it's actually pretty simple. But of course it's never that simple against Daniil Medvedev, who's well, the best defender in the world. You could probably argue that. That's a great serve from Alcaraz, and he was already trying to cover it with a D net. This is probably also something that we're going to see. Actually, I will talk about that maybe on the changeover. But even yesterday, Frances Tiafoe, he lost to Medvedev despite that. Like, if it wasn't for that well, little choke, let's say, at the end from Medvedev, it would have been a very simple match for the Russian yesterday, for sure. But well, Tiafoe, we can still take some things away from that one, like especially the way Tiafoe was serve volleying sometimes, which has been, of course, a tactic against Medvedev because of his returning position being so so many meters behind the court sometimes. And Tiafoe was actually using that pretty well in some games in the second set. Especially out wide, approaching the net. It's really effective, and we're probably going to see Carlos do that a lot today as well. I'm probably going to touch on it a little bit on the changeover because I want to just talk about their about their previous match. But for now, of course, Alcaraz clinches that game. Has Medi overperformed here, Damian? Says John in the chat. Um, Depends what it means, to overperform. Has he overperformed in Indian Wells? You'd probably have to say so, but then again, the opposition also, like, the run wasn't really that strong, I guess. Frances Tiafoe is not the guy who's been making ATP Masters 1000, finals, semifinals on a regular basis for sure. Zverev is still quite far from his best, so I think it's been a couple of factors, but he for sure has played better at Indian Wells than he has ever done before. Um, I guess at least a part of that must be coming from the sheer fact that he is on such a crazy win streak, and this is going to just give you that this much confidence. That's a fantastic like return 1-2 punch from Carlos, really upping the pace. And there's not much that Daniil could do. Of course, one of the keys will be for Medvedev to get as many first serves in as possible. Well, not actually taking the speed off, because we saw yesterday against Tiafoe that for a set and a half there was literally nothing that the American could do on Medvedev's on Daniil's serve. So he will be hoping for something similar today. Very similar attack here from Alcaraz, but this time he actually misses that forehand wide. The one that was so so well placed in the first point of this game, but certainly getting a lot of play in this Medvedev opening service game. Very easily could have been 40 love up. Maybe very easily is a stretch, but it was a low margin shot, but still. Oh, and Medvedev actually commits a double fault. So there's going to be some opportunities for the Spaniard already as early as the second game. Now we have a bit of a longer rally on the first breakpoint, and Alcaraz pulls the trigger on a crazy backhand cross-court winner. I mean, I don't know if this level of shot making is sustainable in the long run. Of course, we know that for Alcaraz it sometimes is. Perhaps it isn't against a defender like Medvedev, but at least for now, the first two games really went as as well for him as he could have hoped for. I think. A couple of extremely good winners this game, and he actually breaks Medvedev, which could very well mean that he's gonna win the opening set. With how well the guys have been serving this event, as you saw in the stats that John showed on the screen at the beginning. Carlos is winning 96% of his service games for the event. I guess now maybe even closer to 97, and Medvedev was at 90. Now probably at like 88, 9. So yeah, breaks have not been frequent in matches of these two this fortnight. And there's already the forehand drop shot from Alcaraz coming in. This is also, the one of the biggest reasons why people think that Alcaraz is the favorite today, for sure. He definitely has the skill set, the variety to expose expose Medvedev basically if he's a bit too defensive in his court positioning, which he tends to do. Let's be honest, but and on some occasions this week, I think, especially in the second set against Davidovich Fokina, some parts of his matches, basically, we've seen Medvedev really commit to shots a lot more and come out of his comfort zone. He will probably need to do that against Alcaraz. And I mean, he is on a 19-match win streak. I mean, he is in crazy good form. So um, even if the chords don't suit him necessarily, he might still produce something like that. Now Carlos goes for 40 love up serve and volley, which was actually at the body of Medvedev, who nets the forehand return. Usually you would expect Alcaraz to go for some different placement on the serve and volley, but it's 40 love up. You actually might just throw in something different to keep the opponent guessing. This is something that a lot of players have been doing in recent years, I think. What I wanted to talk about earlier was their only meeting, which was Wimbledon 2021. I was actually kind of surprised that it's their only meeting, like just, not even thinking about it. I figured, oh, they must have played like, twice, three times, but no. And even though it was pretty lopsided, it was 6-4, 6-1, 6-2, I think, for Medvedev, or something along these lines. It was kind of exciting already. You could see that Alcaraz might have some grass court potential in the future. My recollection of this match is him playing some very positive tennis, just approaching the net a lot, trying to be, as usual, of course, extremely aggressive, but having a lot of fun, while actually getting thrashed in terms of the scoreline. But of course, 2021 Wimbledon Alcaraz, he was what, 17? No, I guess 18 already, right? No, I can't count. Yeah, I guess 18 already, because I think his birthday is in June, so he was like just having barely turned 18. Yeah, of course, it's a long time for a player who's developed like that since, and even though you could tell that he had this sort of potential back then, he was still extremely raw, and of course, with very little grass court experience. I think he played Wimbledon juniors and Roehampton, maybe even like made the quarters at Wimbledon juniors or something like that. He hasn't played much juniors. He was generally too good for the juniors tour, but I think he actually played Wimbledon, if I remember correctly. But yeah, even in that match with Medvedev at Wimbledon, which was definitely very very simple for the Russian back then. You could see the incredible potential, and I think Medvedev was also like, on record talking about that match, talking about Alcaraz after the match, that as if he was a phenomenal prospect, and of course he was. Medvedev is generally like I think we can kind of trust him with these things, that he's usually not being courteous with them, right? He was also saying a lot of nice words about Yibing Wu at the U.S. Open, I remember, and especially now after the Chinese claimed the title in Dallas, he was like right about it. Of course, the guy knows what he's talking about. There was some brief interaction between the players and Layani, but I'm not sure what it was about, but I think maybe the mic is broken, because Layani is like screaming Ferdi love, which was kind of funny. But yeah, uh, as you heard, Medvedev is Ferdi love up in this game. Now Carlos finds a pretty good cross-court pass. You can certainly say that Medvedev could have done more with the forehand approach, but yeah, that's one of the parts of his game that he definitely struggles with, because of his quirky technique. Getting good shots on balls like this, mid court low balls from his forehand is quite tough, for sure. So also can't really blame him for that, I suppose. Yeah, Liani seems to be screaming, so I guess it's something with the mics. Another great return from Alcaraz kind of sets him, it gives him the point eventually, because Medvedev can just give the ball back to him and he blasts the forehand, which Medvedev can't cover. So far, the defense of Medvedev has not been giving him much. Like whenever Alcaraz is able to accelerate on his forehand, the ball usually doesn't really come back. And there's another rally. This time Carlos found the opening for the forehand, but nets it. And Medvedev might have a game, because he's got the game point and will try to attempt to close it out. John says that some electric system isn't working again at Indian Wells. Yeah, that's been a bit of a theme for sure, with the Sakari Sabalenka semifinal, especially, I think. Now it's Medvedev who goes for a drop shot. The moment was pretty good, I think, but he just didn't execute it quite right. We see the legend, the rocket, Rodney Laver on our screens, which always is a great sight. That the guy still shows up at Indian Wells and the Australian Open, basically. Of course, a huge legend of the game, perhaps the greatest of all time. There are people who claim that. That passing shot was actually barely missed by Alcaraz, so Medvedev will have another game point. There was this list, of course, this year, the Tennis 128 by the owner of the Tennis Abstract website, who I think, based on the algorithm that he came up with, I think Rod Laver was his goat, which kind of makes sense. We don't know how many slams he would have amassed if between the years 62 and 69 he was actually able to play them, because of course of the whole mess with amateur and pro tennis back then. But anyhow, uh, Alcaraz survives backhand to backhand rally with Medvedev by actually changing the pattern, and going for the maybe not necessarily down the line corridor, but just going deep at Medvedev, and it works out. Yeah, whenever I've said it a couple of points ago, but I think whenever whenever Alcaraz has been able to really up the pace, he has been winning these points like almost instantaneously. Medvedev is just not getting the balls back so far. And we've just seen a stat of points won of length of over 9 shots, I think it was, and it's 5-0 Alcaraz. Looks like we might get another one of these longer points now. Yeah, I think it's over 9 shots already. We'll see if Alcaraz also wins this one, and he does not. He goes for a big forehand counter, which he well, maybe not just misses, but misses long. Yeah, what do we think about Medi's slices? No, it's like most of his game, I think. It's ugly, but it's effective. It's not the best in the world, but it certainly is good enough. Like, it's not a part of his game that actively needs tampering with, I think, at this point in time. There was also a question about Medvedev on grass. Can he win Wimbledon? I've always belonged to the church that Daniil Medvedev will win a few Wimbledons, which is basically why I believed that before that Australian Open choke against Nadal, I basically believed that Medvedev was on track to get like 6-8 slams, which to some people sounds ridiculous. I've been I've been ridiculed for this opinion a few times. I don't really care. Like, it's not really something we're gonna be able to check as well. Like what would have happened if Medvedev takes that Australian Open final, where for 2 sets and a half he was clearly the better player. But yeah, that's basically why I thought that, because he seemed like a lock to win. I don't know, 5 hardcourt slams, let's say, and then I also figured that he was going to win a couple of Wimbledons because, well, no one in this era knows how to play there. He's got a big serve. He's got flat ground strokes, which of course work so well on grass. So yeah, I still think he's got a decent shot, especially if Djokovic is out. I think on a recent stream of Nick, maybe it was, he pointed out to me that anytime Daniil Medvedev has lost at Wimbledon, it was in 5 sets, which hilariously even dates back to 2017, and he's lost to Ruben Bemelmans. But of course, like the ones in recent memory were a great match with David Goffin in 2019, and also in 2021 with Hubert Hurkacz, the one that was moved to to another. I think it was moved to the center corridor or something like that, right? Or maybe no, sorry, maybe it was like moved to the next day. Anyway, there was some mess with this, and yeah, basically, these two losses, they weren't poor or anything like that. He did have to come back against Cilic, though, just before that match with Hurkacz, and it kind of gives you, I guess, the insight that players like Berrettini, Cilic, Hurkacz, all these strong grass courters that we don't really have many of on the tour right now, certainly not. It kind of gives you the info that these guys can actually maybe trouble him consistently on grass. But he has been winning, grass court events, or at least going far in them on the main tour as well. Of course, not Wimbledon. But, Last year he was in the final in what was it, Hertogenbosch. Then I believe also in Halle, right? Yeah, in Halle. He won Mallorca a couple years back. So uh, even honestly, one of my first memories with Daniil Medvedev, which was 2017 Queen's Club, I think, was when he played Grigor Dimitrov in a very underrated match on grass. He lost in three sets, and it was like a 6-3, 3-6, 6-3, I think. And no one talked about this match. No one cared about this match, from what I remember. I wasn't on Twitter back then, so maybe on Twitter it was different. But like in the parts of tennis internet that I knew back then, no one talked about this match. But it was absolutely phenomenal. And Carlos actually plays another serve and volley on game point and finishes that off. A pretty clumsy volley, I would say, but it wasn't really his fault. It was like the ball was coming straight at him, and yeah, it was way more than good enough. Let's say Medvedev had no chance to get to it before the double bounce. So it's 4-1 Alcaraz as we go into another changeover. Something else that I wanted to say, that I mentioned all these 5-set losses for Medvedev at Wimbledon. I have to say that one actually wasn't in five, but that's a qualifying loss in 2016 to the legend Marcus Willis. Anytime there's a chance to mention Marcus Willis on a tennis show of any kind, you should do that. So I figured, yeah, that was in 4 sets. Actually, it was the final qualifying round, but yeah, and we just heard Molayani say that everything is good now. So I guess there's no more issues. Big success for Indian Wells. Yeah, so far, after the first 5 games, what can we say really? Alcaraz is definitely like his game plan is exactly what everyone thought it would be. I think even though these players have faced each other just once, it's going to be very hard for them to surprise each other. Um, and yeah, Medvedev just had a very sloppy game in the to start the match. Basically, of course, it was the second game, but still his first service game, and that's why he's behind on the scoreboard. Just 2 more holds for Alcaraz to win the opening set, which of course would put him in a very good position. But of course, for first, Medvedev actually needs to hold himself. So yeah, when the first serve goes in this week or this fortnight, more so, it's been really hard for Medvedev's opponents to do anything. For the past for the first set and a half, I think in the Tiafoe match, he was like barely losing points on serve, and this one didn't give him a point right away, but it set him up for a pretty easy forehand, just top to bottom. Not the kind of short forehands he struggles with generally. His first winner of the match, actually, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, another very good point for Medvedev. Kind of set up by the serve, but he also had to hit a couple of cross-court forehands, but both of them were trying to wrong foot Alcaraz, and they actually did the job. So um, such a very promising game so far for sure from Medvedev. There's a second serve on 40 love. Can he? No, I was asking if he's gonna risk it, but he actually didn't. Hitting some big forehands this game, Medvedev, and he just blasts another winner. So before this game he had none. Now he has two, and a very simple hold, which again kind of tells you that this first break in this match in the second game on Medvedev's serve, it could be very important. My stream has lagged a bit. Oh, okay, it's stopped. Right when Alcaraz was hitting another perfect forehand drop shot. Probably the best in the game right now with that. And there was actually a very interesting quote from him a couple of days ago on Twitter, sort of going around when he was asked about that forehand drop shot. Of course, there's a bit of a limit to what Alcaraz is gonna like say in depth about his tennis because of his English skills. But there he was actually very insightful and yeah, basically said what we've all been talking about for the past I don't know how long with Alcaraz, 2 years, 3 years, and well, the quote was that the most important thing is to like have the big forehand so that the opponent is never really sure, right? I mean, the opponent has to think about both covering the drop shot and also being able to touch a big forehand if the opponent decides to go for it. So yeah, that's and I guess a great example of that was this point for the love up for Alcaraz, because if he like he won the point with a plus on forehand winner, but if he went for the drop shot, he also would have won the point. Like sometimes there's just no way to cover both. Sometimes there's no way to cover even, either of them. But the main thing is to keep the opponent guessing with that forehand drop shot. And nowadays, ooh, but Alcaraz does the same. I was talking about this earlier. For the love up, he goes for a serve and volley at the body of Medvedev. I think, yeah, it's just a tactic of trying to keep him guessing. You're 40 love up, you might as well try something very different. This time he couldn't get the volley right. It was actually a very good return from Medvedev, but he would definitely have more success serving volleying out wide, I think. But that doesn't matter when you're 40 love up. I think it is designed specifically to try to keep the Russian guessing. But right now it's 40-30. As he misses another +1 forehand. This one probably wouldn't have won him the point right away, but I think he was ready to follow it up to the net and potentially smash it. Because Medvedev seemed to be like, lob probably would have been his best choice at that point. But still, one more game point for Alcaraz. But he could be in trouble in this one, as Medvedev got a very good return in, but seems like Alcaraz is back in the point. Ah, that's a weird line call, but I'll take it. Of course, it is automated, so it is always right, I guess. Anyway, this sort of fake variety plan is something that I think was heavily popularized by Federer in his like late stages of his career, when he would just at 40 love up or something like that, like a point that's maybe not irrelevant, maybe not meaningless, but a point that doesn't weigh as much as some other ones. He would often throw a completely different tactic, just to keep the opponent guessing, even though it's actually only on these sort of irrelevant points. That's not how the opponent's brain will register it. And I think Alcaraz has been really well trying to do that a lot this match. Basically, we've already seen these two 40 love points on his serve, where he was, both times he just straight up serve and volleys to Medvedev's body. Not the greatest placement, I guess, if you want to go for something like that. But yeah, one time it worked, of course. One time it did not. But I think he's really actively trying to yeah to just be creative and see to it. See how smoothly this Medvedev service game will go. Another rally where Carlos was definitely back into the point, but just misses a huge forehand. I guess he can go for some, wilder swings in this one for sure. We also see that the wind is impacting the game a bit. I think just on the eye test, so to speak, it doesn't seem to be as heavy as it was in some parts of the Rybalenka. I said it again. I did the same like a couple days ago. Uh, Sabalenka Rybakina. I guess Rybalenka is a good nickname for their matches, though, or their rivalry. But yeah, the wind doesn't seem as heavy as in that one. Anyway, it's 30-15 now. Alcaraz with a great forehand return just at Medvedev's feet. Nothing really the Russian could do there. I had an interesting comment under one of my tweets actually today, which isn't really related to this much. It is related to the war in Ukraine, so a controversial topic for sure. But yeah, just I just said that the Russian as a way to avoid repeating Shevchenko's name in one of my tweets, and a guy commented saying this: Russian born, playing under neutral flag, please. Like, I just said the Russian did something, right? I mean, um, I don't think it would be right to say, Russian born, because, like, he is Russian. Like, he's not representing Russia right now. But, like, this just came to my mind because I just said the Russian about Medvedev. Hope no one's gonna be outraged by this. If you are, I might try to use some other um, phrases like the however many years old Medvedev is, probably like 26, or I don't know, the US 2021 US Open champion. Medvedev was definitely in that first point of the game though, at 5-3, and he was again trying to go for a pretty aggressive inside-in forehand. It hasn't really worked out a few times in this game already, in this match already for him. And we also have the unforced errors and winners stat on the screen, and Medvedev's count seems to be at 2 and 10, which definitely is quite suboptimal. And this time the returning position actually pays off for Medvedev, but the rally is still going. And it's Alcaraz who finds a great backhand winner. I mean, backhand down the line and then follows it up to the net. Really solid stuff, yeah. In terms of that, just whenever Medvedev is pushed so far behind by one of Alcaraz's shots, he is very quick to get there. Hey Jane, thank you for your donation. She says that she's cleaning and can't chat, but she's enjoying the play-by-play immensely. Very glad to hear that. I don't know if I've actually done any of these by myself. Maybe some small parts of matches when we were in Bonn, but so it is a little awkward for me. So it's good to hear that at least someone's enjoying that. Anyway, we've got 30 love up for Alcaraz in the 5-3 game. Medvedev wasn't really clean on that return, but he isn't in the point. Oh, and Alcaraz went for the drop shot again. Perfect moment, honestly. I mean, Medvedev wasn't gonna get to that, but this time he didn't get it quite right. But certainly, certainly the call to do it was right. It was actually, the whole opportunity was brought about by the insane depth that he got on his previous forehand. And I guess that kind of also circles back to what I said about just keeping the opponent guessing in terms of whether it's going to be a huge shot of the forehand side or just a softer drop shot. And now we see another serve and volley from Alcaraz. This time, as I also mentioned earlier, just out wide. Then it's kind of hard for Medvedev to find a good angle for the return. So it usually is going to be down the middle. The volley was kind of accidental, frankly, from Alcaraz. Like, there was a degree of luck involved for sure, but he got it on the line actually. So there's two set points for the Spaniard. Still the right call, of course, tactically, but um, it was a little lucky. And another serve out wide. Actually, this one was great enough that he didn't even need to touch it on the touch the volley. So yeah, as I guess we kind of predicted after the second game of this set, it was basically all she wrote after Medvedev lost his serve, which is wild. I've missed some John comments from 12 minutes ago. Yeah. What would you tell a player to do to beat Carlos? Um, let's think about that. What really, what really sort of weaknesses does he have? Not many, right? I mean, you should probably try to like not have him um not let him have as much fun on the offense as he usually gets against most opponents. Of course, it's very tough against a shot maker of this class. Part of why he's so good is that he barely has any weaknesses. For a while the serve, of course, was one, and you can still really quite easily take advantage of that on some days. Certainly not this fortnight. You can he is vulnerable to being overpowered, I think, especially by players who are very strong on serve and return, but not really in conditions like this. You could see, like, for example, Ojar Yassim, right, beating him last year. He was just so clean against Alcaraz, and in general there's been a few losses like that. But I guess part of the Alcaraz magic is that you cannot really find that many exposable weaknesses. There's also, of course, there's also been some times when his rally tolerance hasn't been that high. Just against excellent defenders. Um, One of the matches that I have in mind is against Ramos Vinolas at the French last year, right? Someone who plays such a very tricky lefty game. So I guess the answer to that question about what would you tell a player to do to beat Alcaraz, Carlos, is like very related to what that certain, that specific player's skill set is. Because yeah, like, there's going to be a very different plan for Ojar Yassim, and there's going to be a very different one for um, Albert Ramos Vinolas, whom I just mentioned, or I don't know, Jaume Munar, who gave him a lot of trouble in the past, which maybe is kind of unexpected. I have to ask Pavel Czasz one day, how did he take a set of Carlos Alcaraz at an ITF event in 2020? But of course, Alcaraz was like 16 back then, so I think that kind of explains it, right? But still wild for me that a match like that happened. Pavel Czasz is like my favorite Polish player. He has basically never really played challengers full time, just with Polish wildcards, and I think he got his first main draw win outside of Poland in a challenger last year. So he's like 29. So yeah, it's just wild to me that a match like this happened. And when I get the chance, I don't know if I will, but maybe I'll get the chance this summer, and I guess I'll try to ask him about it, because it has to be a fantastic story, playing Alcaraz when he was 16. How what did he think of him? What did he think of his potential? Just he actually took a set, right? So maybe he thought, yeah, this guy is nothing special. I can take a set of him. I think he lost the third 6-1 though. So, and we're back. Medvedev starts the second set this time around. Of course, we'll try to avoid an error like in the opening service game of the first set. But this time he's also love 15 behind, actually, after netted backhand. And it's not a good sign for him that Alcaraz is returning the serves. And yeah, There's some very clumsy volleying for the Russian here. He was well, he was definitely ahead and just tried to approach, but that backhand volley was miles out. So it's love 30 and some real trouble here for Medvedev if he can't get a few easy points. And this point won't be easy because Alcaraz is back in the rally as well. Yeah, and Medvedev nets a forehand. He was trying to be aggressive with it again, but just didn't work out at all. Love 40. And this is the kind of Medvedev, frankly, that we've been used to seeing at Indian Wells the past few years, right? Which kind of poses the question, like, was he just not even pushed by guys like Davidovich, Fukina, Tiafoe? I don't think so. Yeah, and Medvedev double faults to give away the break. So I guess this could be a very short commentary stream if Alcaraz just holds 5 more times. But what I wanted to say was that I don't really think that this is a case of Davidovich, Fukina, Tiafoe, Zverev not pushing Medvedev hard enough, even Ivashka. I think they actually were playing, they posed the questions. It's just Medvedev was simply much better against them than he is so far against Alcaraz. He's had two extremely sloppy service games, and with him not really generating much on return, and a lot of that, is on Alcaraz just being very smart about what he's gonna do after his first delivery. Yeah, it's really hard so far to see him mounting a comeback. Whenever he's been trying to do something more off the ground, he's generally missing. And there's an ace from Alcaraz to go 15 love up in the second game of the second set. But yeah, this is the wind actually seems to have increased a bit. But this is the sort of Medvedev that we were used to seeing in Indian Wells for sure. The ball really sits up. It's hard for him to hit through it. Yeah, and this is just Alcaraz plays another serve and volley out wide, and it just works like a charm every single time. Like there's just nothing Medvedev can do. The angle for anything basically isn't open. It was actually a pretty decent return, I think. But it's a stretch volley for Alcaraz, but it wasn't a particularly tough one. It wasn't even particularly well executed. It was good, but it wasn't like show stopping. It wasn't breathtaking, and yet it just works every single time. It's so effective that you really start wondering what Medvedev could do here, because I guess the problem usually against players who stand this far behind to return, so maybe like let's say Nadal, Medvedev, Santiago Giraldo from the past. But I guess his returning strategy was actually more aggressive, even though he stood far behind. But I guess the problem usually was for servant volleyers that the ball coming at them is very heavy, and it can be tough to control the volley. We don't see that with Alcaraz here, with Medvedev here. The ball of the return of Medvedev coming in is just not causing Alcaraz many issues when he's serve and volleying. And Alcaraz has actually won the last 10 points, which 11 now. He's just, a break away from ending this match, basically. And now he only needs to win 3 more points because he just put in another great forehand return down the middle. Finally, something for free for Medvedev or not? Not really. He approaches the net and messes up the forehand volley. It was not that easy, but that's also kind of his fault because again the forehand approach wasn't great. But as I've said many times, this is the sort of thing that with his technique is kind of hard. So yeah, always give him a bit of a pass for for this, but still, it's what brought him trouble here for sure. And the streak is finally over with 12 points. Alcaraz is complaining about the line calling there. he thinks that Medvedev's forehand was out. I don't think so, but it was a pretty decent combination from the Russian. He's actually hit it quite a few times already. That whippy forehand into Alcaraz's forehand, and then once again contre-pied in French, so like behind the, against the legs or whatever, against the feet, I guess. Behind Alcaraz, wrong footing him. But of course, Carlos was also bothered by the line call, which, I don't think he was right about. Another rally here, but this time Medvedev survives it. Alcaraz tried to take the ball very, very early, but netted it. So it's 30-all, but this is clearly a very, very important game for how this match is going to go from here. Because, Medvedev losing it basically ends the match. He does have a game point, though. Alcaraz can't quite control the Medvedev serve now, but it also has to be mentioned that Medvedev is not getting any free points. Oh, and right on cue, we actually get a stat about that on the screen, about Medvedev only. His serves are unreturned only 15% of the time today, compared to 40% in the previous rounds, which is quite huge. But I don't think that's just Alcaraz guessing it right or something like that, or just putting getting good timing on it. I think it's also his spot serving, which has been just hasn't really been there. You don't really see Medvedev winning 3 points on his serve here, and that's mostly as a lot of them are into yeah. My point exactly. Of course, this was the second serve, so it was going to be a lot more conventional. But yeah, it's just straight into Alcaraz's hitting zone, and he blasts a backhand return winner. This is a really horror show from Medvedev. So in this second set, and there's a second serve down breakpoint. Alcaraz goes for another big backhand return, and it's enough to force an error. So, as I said, this might be a very short commentary stream. Alcaraz is currently 2 breaks up. I mean, as I said before the match, I did think that Alcaraz was going to win this, or rather was like going to be very surprised if he like doesn't take a set or something like that. The difference with Nadal is he can mix up his return positions too. Yeah. I mean, Nadal is probably one of the best players at adjusting his tactics mid-match, and certainly he has this in his repertoire. Yeah, to step up if he feels like he needs it. Medvedev, not really. So Medvedev, I guess, is like Caroline Garcia the other way around, where Garcia stands on the baseline for the first serve return, and basically inside between the service line and the baseline on the second serve return, and she's never willing to give it up. She's never willing to go backwards. Medvedev is almost never willing to go forwards. You can see him tamper, you can see him kind of try to change it up a bit sometimes, but it usually doesn't give him great effects. Should he do that in this case? At this point, the match is probably lost. But in general, I think so. Yeah, like you cannot really allow Alcaraz to have this sort of barely like 100%, almost 100% tactic, like the serve and volley out wide, where there's just no angles for Medvedev to hit into. Everything is easily covered unless he can blast that insane backhand down the line return, for example, that we've seen from him a few times. But of course, that's such a low percentage shot. And it's actually one that the position kind of helps you, but yeah, it's still so tough. So yeah, I mean, nothing else really to add here, other than Alcaraz having some very reliable point-winning engines here. Medvedev is just having a horror show, absolutely. It wasn't really the case in the opener, other than that one game. He wasn't getting much traction on return, for sure, but I wouldn't say he was playing particularly poorly. But the second set has been pretty awful. Yeah, and another huge forehand from Alcaraz, and there's just no response from Medvedev. He's been very flat in even in terms of his defense this match. Frankly, like whenever Alcaraz is able to accelerate, whenever he finds like an opportunity to go for just up the pace very drastically, it's not coming back. It's not the sort of defense that Daniil Medvedev has gotten us used to. Stan Medvedev is in the rally, but again, he can't quite really, put any pressure on Carlos. And yeah, the Spaniard eventually finds his opening. He just missed it, but it wasn't really, a rally that Medvedev can take a lot of hope from, I think, because it basically featured him trying to apply any pressure to Alcaraz, failing, and then eventually just the Spaniard missing when he found an opening. But um, that's not something that Medvedev can really use. But of course, it's 30-15, so he is 1 point closer to breaking, even though it's still quite far. But he is in another rally. This time there's a backhand drop shot from Alcaraz, and it was actually pretty good. Like it wasn't executed that well, but I think the surprise factor was there. It's not really a shot that he goes for as much as his forehand drop shot, of course, and I think I was certainly expecting him to blast that inside out backhand rather than go for the drop shot, and I think probably Medvedev was the same. He got to it, but couldn't put it into the court. So 2 game points for Alcaraz to go 6-3 for love up. Once again, the return is in, so at least in these games, Medvedev is in the rallies, which is why it's 40-30. Alcaraz tried to be maybe a little too, take the forehand a bit too quickly. Can he get a free point this time? Not really. There's going to be a second serve. It's just a regular kick, so we are again in a backhand cross-court rally. We'll see who tries to break out of the pattern first. It was actually Medvedev, but he just nets it, and the horror show continues. 6-3 for love up. I guess Medvedev has had a few finals like that recently. Of course, not necessarily in not in this win streak, right? Because of course in this win streak it was completely different. But last year there were a few like that, right? Especially the one against Hurkacz in Halle and Van Rijthoven in Hertogenbosch. I guess that these were his only finals that he lost last year. So along with Nadal at the Australian Open, of course, which is widely considered to be the match that broke him, I guess, or something like that. But of course, right now he is very much unbroken again. Still, he cannot really do anything in this one. He is again love 15 up. It's just surprising how flat he's been, because it doesn't really feel like Alcaraz has had to do anything special. I would even say maybe do anything at all. Certainly, Sinner was pushing Alcaraz a lot more. Another pretty cheap error from Medvedev. Tommy Haas is sitting there talking with someone that I don't know. I guess he's not going to be too happy about this final, even though this was, the best two players in the world, but except for Novak Djokovic, right? So theoretically, it's fantastic, but Medvedev is just so flat today. Now Carlos tries to go for a very sharp angle on that backhand crosscourt and fails, but still 30-15 up in the Medvedev service game. This time, the serve actually sets up a pretty free point for Medvedev, but well, he still had to hit a forehand, but it was almost done right after the serve. You see, the cameras are on Gilles Servara, who's obviously in a bit of a rough spot there as well, sitting at his protege's performance like this. Alcaraz tries to step into the backhand return, backhand second serve return, and he actually like it wasn't a clean hit at all, but he almost made it. It was an inch probably. Yeah, maybe a little more than an inch. Looking at the close call replay. And again, like the Medvedev first serve comes in, but it's just not placed well at all. The spot serving is not there. And there's another one of these backhand drop shots from Alcaraz, actually the very, very same motion, like in the previous one, but it's this time it's not good enough. Medvedev gets to it and forces him to make a pass, which he didn't. Yeah, very, very weird match, certainly to watch and to commentate on. Am I commentating? I guess I am. But yeah, 6-3-4-1, and we'll see how smoothly Alcaraz closes it out. Is that the only thing that can happen? Probably, right? With how flat Medvedev has been and the two breaks ahead, it's hard to see anything else happening here, but we shall see. Maybe there's still a chance. I see some tennis TV video on Twitter with 98 miles per hour Alcaraz forehand. Which one was that? Okay, it was that +1 forehand winner. Yeah, that was pretty quick because Medvedev was actually in, he was actually in a pretty good position to take it, but he didn't like even move to it. But yeah, that was his fault actually. Yeah, and Alcaraz to serve. Let's see if he can keep holding so easily. One of the best rallies of the match, I guess, just in terms of how much quality there was on most of the balls. But that's a fantastic cross-court forehand winner from Alcaraz. Yeah, just giving Medvedev a bit of a taste of his own medicine because a few times earlier, Medvedev pulled off a very similar combination. Of course, not with this much raw pace. Again, we see that it was 93 miles per hour on this winner, but also just direction wise. And Alcaraz actually goes for something very similar here, but just misses it. There was a bit of a moment of hesitation when Alcaraz served out wide and was clearly trying to make it to the net, but then stopped. I think he just saw that his serve maybe isn't as good as he was hoping for. It didn't really make him lose control of the point, but yeah, such doubt, hesitation can sometimes just mess up your chances to win the rally for sure. Not really in this case, I would say though. And there's another phenomenal forehand drop shot from Alcaraz, probably like the third or fourth in this match. I think to the forehand drop shot, Medvedev was like not even. I'm not sure there's been a forehand drop shot that he even attempted to get to, frankly. I think there was one, but like he had no chance to get to it before the second bounce, or maybe that was to a volley. Can't remember. Yeah, it's kind of shocking that against guys like Sinner or even frankly like Auger Aliassime, Alcaraz had to. Oh my goodness, another insane forehand dropper, and I have to mention that that quote I talked about earlier again. Yeah, Medvedev is just straight up expecting, like he's certain that Alcaraz is just gonna go for that huge forehand, and yeah, then the disguise is so good, and it doesn't even have to be spot on, but this one actually pretty much was. But again, Medvedev didn't even flinch, but that's not really his fault in this case. The third one, and this was actually another serve out wide that Alcaraz easily could have followed up to the net, but he saw that it perhaps wasn't the best call. Medvedev's return was amazing, but he was just so far behind the court that Alcaraz just drop shotted it so easily. So this was three forehand drop shots in a row, basically, and yeah, just quite shocking how this match is going. Yeah, three forehand drop shot winners in a row. That was quite crazy, but that also kind of tells you what the issue for Medvedev is in this matchup. He's just so far behind, and Alcaraz is probably best equipped on tour to capitalize on that. I mean, there are better volleyers, but um, there are better serving volleyers as well. But like forehand drop shot, you don't really get better than Carlos Alcaraz. Just 3 points away from losing the match now, Medvedev. Yeah, this time he actually finds a line with his serve, which has not been happening for him at all. And it's also a big part of why this match has looked why it looked. This time, well, Medvedev responds to an Alcaraz drop shot very, very well and wins the point because of that. This was probably the first forehand drop shot that he got to. It wasn't great, but like the response from Medvedev was actually really high class, and he tries to end the game with run forehand winner on the run. But he just clips the net. Of course, it was down the line, so like the highest possible point of the net, and yeah, quite a tough shot. It would have been very flashy to end the game in this way. Probably the last game he wins in this event. But again, second serve, another big Alcaraz return, but Medvedev survives. And he has loosened up a bit, he's been hitting quite big in this point, but in this game even, but it's too little too late. And this has been a bit of a common point in many Medvedev losses, I think. Like the losses where he's blown out, that he tries to change something or like loosens up and hits more aggressively, gets closer to the baseline in the rally when it's too little too late. When it's like not an actual, trying to change anything, when it's just yeah, I'm loose, I'm gonna do, whatever, because why not? Yeah, just looking at Twitter, and there's like some, of course, some takes about Alcaraz, but um yeah, someone says that as much as it annoys you, Carlos deserves all the hype. Of course it doesn't annoy me, but yeah, there's been people definitely who have been annoyed with all the hype that he's gotten, basically since the age of 14 or 15, but uh yeah, it's clearly all deserved. I mean, he's absolutely he's a true big four, big three successor, and this is another match that kind of proves it, but not that he really needed to prove it. But also, of course, Medvedev has been very flat and not really getting anything back in terms of like defending, which is one of his fortes, and also the spot serving was has certainly been um, way below his level from the rest of the tournament, which yeah, he needed it to be very very hard, very 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 good today. I even said before the match started, right, that the serve is probably the biggest advantage that Alcaraz has over Medvedev, and sorry, the other way around, that Medvedev has over Alcaraz, and yeah, today we have not seen that. We have not. Yeah, 3 points away now. Medvedev is throwing his racket around and looks like he's just gonna, yeah, like there's not even gonna be, um, well, like there's not gonna be a comeback attempt. Another serve volley out wide, and it's just, yeah, it just works every time. It's actually just kind of baffling to watch. Another forehand drop shot, but this one is not as perfect. And we actually have a very interesting point, which ends with Alcaraz's lob being really short, and Medvedev just slams the smash, nails it. Um, this forehand drop shot was maybe overplaying it a bit, but um, just the execution wasn't as good as on the previous ones, and Medvedev was able to catch it quite cleanly. So it's 30 all. Second serve on the match point. And he actually will have to clinch the match on some other occasion because he misfires a forehand. We just haven't really seen like any yeah, crazy rallies of the sorts that we were expecting. We haven't seen the sort of rallies that we even had in Alcaraz versus Sinner. It's just, yeah, Carlos has been winning this very, very easily. I think both things are true. He's playing it very smart tactically, which of course I know with the sort of team that he has is. And another one, serve out wide, serve and volley. And even though the return from Medvedev is actually quite big and heavy, he is just so far out of the out of the sideline, out of the baseline. And it's over. So Alcaraz is the champion in Indian Wells for the very first time. Yeah, what can we really say? Very quick, very lopsided. Could it have been closer? Like 100%. I think, especially if Medvedev was serving better. Um, yeah, if his spot serving was like at the level he had presented the whole fortnight, it really could have been much closer. But still, I think there are definitely some issues in how Medvedev's game is crafted against Alcaraz, because, well, yeah, the serve and volley out wide was just 100% tactic for Alcaraz. There was nothing that could go wrong. Even when Medvedev was like hitting the return pretty hard and heavy, it had no angles for a possible pass. Medvedev was already so far out, the sideline, out the baseline. Just a point-winning engine that really nothing could have gone wrong with. And the same with the forehand drop shot. Really, of course, there the execution actually had to be like better. But a few times I guess it backfired. But still, a very reasonable weapon against the Russian for Alcaraz today. Also the fact that, yeah, there was basically no like defensive capability of Medvedev. It didn't shine whatsoever. He seemed kind of flat. And yeah, I guess this is the sort of Medvedev that we've been expecting at Indian Wells. But after the first 5 matches that he played, we certainly weren't expecting him to show up in the final. uh, what else can be said, really? um, Yeah, if he served better, there was certainly a chance. Thanks everyone for tuning in. This is Jones. I guess that means I should wrap up. Thank you for making the best of this very sad match for Medi. Thank you. Thank you, Jane, for the donation, and thanks for listening to my rambling about the Medvedev Alcaraz match, which was indeed very short, still kind of entertaining, just to see what would happen, but certainly a bit of not the greatest day in the office for Medvedev. Will he be back stronger in Miami? We'll see. I'm pretty sure he should. We're gonna see how the courts play, because yeah, there's been these rumors that they're gonna be much faster. They should in general suit Medvedev better than in Indian Wells. Of course, he hasn't really been past the quarters, I think, in Miami, but that's still better than his Indian Wells results were pre 2023. And maybe Medvedev just needs a bit of a break, because of course over the past month and a bit, he's played so much tennis. 20 matches in how many days it would be? Like 35, something like this. So yeah, it's been quite a lot of tennis as well. So thanks everyone for listening, and I guess I'll see you around on some other Talking Tennis broadcast. Bye. Waving my hand. And
if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.